This is Philadelphia Eagles Now by Chat Sports. I'm Chase Sr., and coming your way, we are going to preview this Week 4 matchup between the Philadelphia Eagles and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Kickoff set for Sunday, September 29th in Tampa. Kickoff set for 1 p.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific. The Philadelphia Eagles, 1-point road favorite. So this game, pretty much a pick'em, although some of the money leaning toward the Eagles, although they're very injured, and we'll talk about the injury report on today's show as Philadelphia is banged up with some marquee players not being able to practice midweek. And the over-under for this game at 44. This is obviously a rematch of the wild card round last year in Tampa when the Eagles got embarrassed after they lost 6 of their last 7 to round out the 2023 campaign. Philadelphia off to a 2-1 start. The Buccaneers off to a 2-1 start as well. A programming alert. Myself and producer Chip, we will be live for our Eagles-Bucks watch party, 12 p.m. Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. Wake up with us here on Eagles Now. Our pregame show will carry us into kickoff. And speaking of our watch parties, they've really started to take off the last 2 years, which I obviously love. It wouldn't be possible without all of you and all of the real ones. Week 1 against the Packers, 301,000 people tuned into the show. Against the Falcons, nearly 200,000 people were hanging out with us throughout the duration of the night. And against the New Orleans Saints, 114,000 views. It's the best place to experience an Eagles game day outside of being at the actual game. So we hope to see you on Sunday. Let's start off with this. The Eagles' schedule up to this point as a little bit of a refresher. We'll do the same thing for Tampa Bay. Eagles got off to a great start, beating a really legitimate team in the Green Bay Packers, who have since won 2 games in a row with Malik Willis as their starting quarterback. I think that goes to show how good of a roster Green Bay has. 34-29, and it was a clutch come-from-behind, facing adversity type of win for the Eagles, where they lost a turnover battle 3-1. Jalen Hurts had a couple of giveaways, but that late clutch drive was just tremendous. Week 2, Philadelphia should have won that game. They blew it, they choked, they pissed down their leg. 22-21 heartbreaker of a defeat to the Atlanta Falcons. But then, against another NFC South foe, the Eagles respond. And they respond in a big way. Once again facing and overcoming adversity against the highest scoring offense in the NFL. They held them to 12 points in the New Orleans Saints. One of the top defenses in the NFL. Saquon Barkley ran wild. Dallas Goedert popped off. Jalen Hurts was clutch. A 15-12 win for Philadelphia. As for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, they beat a solid Commanders team. And Jaden Daniels the other night on Monday Night Football had one of the best rookie primetime performances you will ever see from a rookie quarterback in the history of the NFL. He was tremendous. He had more touchdowns than he did incompletions. So for the Bucs to win that game 37-20, that was impressive. And then they went on the road against one of the top teams in the NFC, and they edged the Detroit Lions 20-16 as they really flummoxed that Lions offense and Jared Goff. But then mysteriously, the Bucs maybe feeling themselves a little bit. They come back home, and against the 0-2 Denver Broncos, they lose and kind of got dominated 26-7. Now for Philadelphia, injuries are a concern at wide receiver. Injuries are a concern across the roster for the Eagles in this game. Philadelphia could be without A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, and Britton Covey is already not going to play. And as far as this Eagles injury report goes, during Wednesday's practice, A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith were listed as could not participate. So A.J. Brown might miss his 3rd consecutive game with that hamstring injury. Devontae Smith not really coming along well in the concussion protocol as compared to Lane Johnson, because Devontae Smith was not seen at practice. Lane Johnson was, and he was doing some light work on the side, doing some stretches. So that tells me he's further along in the NFL's concussion protocol. So we'll see if Lane Johnson is able to play. I thought Tyler Steen at right guard filling in for Mekhi Becton and Fred Johnson at right tackle filling in for Lane Johnson. They did a tremendous job considering the environment and the team that they were going up against. So the Eagles might have to call on them once again, and they're going to have to play well. Mekhi Becton does have a broken bone in his hand, so he has a little bit of a club, but he did say he expects to play against the Bucs. And then Dallas Goedert did not participate in practice on Wednesday. Not sure if that's maintenance, but obviously, since the Eagles are so light-handed at wide receiver, they need Dallas Goedert in this game after a career performance, 10 catches, $170 against the Saints in Week 3. And let's go back to the Eagles' wide receiver position. So A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, and Britton Covey. If I were to guess right now, I kind of doubt that they don't play. So the Eagles' receivers for this game could look as such. Jahan Dotson was the wide receiver 3 to start the year. He could elevate to wide receiver 1. You wonder why I was talking about how the Eagles needed to trade for a wideout in the lead up to the year? For these types of reasons. So Jahan Dotson will be wide receiver 1. The Commanders drafted him to be that guy a couple of years ago. It hasn't necessarily translated, but he's pretty good going in and out of his cuts and has good hands, and he has 12 touchdowns the last 2 years. The rookie Johnny Wilson would then elevate to wide receiver 2 in this scenario. Paris Campbell would get elevated from the practice squad once again. He'll be the wide receiver 3. And then you have 2 practice squad options. Danny Gray, 4-3 guy, but is always injured and he's slight and small. He could get elevated to the active game day roster. And then the Eagles signed John Ross, who was with this team during training camp. They signed him to the practice squad this week. So point here being, not really looking good for the Eagles at that wide receiver position. So Kellen Moore is going to have to be in his bag. Jalen Hurts is going to have to carry this offense and play like an MVP. And then Philadelphia will need to run block and pass block. And Saquon Barkley and Dallas Goedert will probably have to star once again. It's the next man up mentality for Philadelphia here in Week 4. Prediction time. Who you got in this ball game? Are you going with the Eagles to win their second consecutive game? Are you going with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers? Let me know down in the comments section. I'll share my prediction a little bit later. This will be the pinned comment on today's video. So if you get hit with that YouTube ad break, scroll on down, get those predictions in. Let's talk about quarterback Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts' performance to start the 2024 season has been up and down, but I'm going to take a look at some of the positives here. In particular, one of them. He has fixed one of his biggest issues as a quarterback, and that's handling the blitz. Without Jason Kelce, he has more control at the line of scrimmage. And against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers here in Week 4, what are the Bucs going to do with Todd Bowles? They are going to blitz Jalen Hurts, and they're going to blitz him a lot, especially knowing that he struggled against the Buccaneers and against the blitz in general, and because the Eagles are light-handed at that wide receiver spot. And the Bucs dominated Philadelphia last year, and they had a strategy. Blitz Jalen Hurts on passing downs. And this is an area where Hurts really struggled last year. He had 268 dropbacks against the blitz in 2023. He only completed 63% of his passes. His yards per attempt, 6.9, and he had a 6.3 sack rate. So far this year, 38 dropbacks against the blitz. Look at how much his numbers have increased. Completion percentage, up to 72.7%. Yards per attempt, up to 7.2. And his sack rate has gone down to 5.2. Couple of reasons for this. Pre-snap motion. The Eagles have answers against the blitz with some hots and some checks. And Jalen Hurts has taken more of an onus with having control at the line of scrimmage, but he's done a better job of identifying where the blitz is coming from. In his 4 games against Tampa Bay in his career, Hurts has just completed 59% of his passes. He has been sacked 8 times with 5 picks and 4 touchdowns. And knowing that that sample size is there, and knowing that Hurts has struggled against this specific Todd Bowles defense, Todd Bowles is going to be relentless with sending pressure to see if Jalen Hurts can respond and to see if him and Kellen Moore have an answer. As for the Buccaneers' strengths, Baker Mayfield has really turned it around. And since the midway point of last year, he's been a borderline top 10, top 13 quarterback in the NFL. He has his confidence back. He is a player who has always had some swagger, but he lost that during the end of his tenure with the Cleveland Browns, and then he was with Carolina, he was with the Rams. He has recaptured that type of swagger with Tampa Bay. He's the franchise guy, and they paid him as such this offseason, coming off a really good year last year. The Bucs also have a good defense, and as I noted, they are going to blitz a lot. In the secondary, very sound, very well coached, led by Antoine Winfield, who is a terrific young safety in this league. Their wide receiver tandem is and has been one of the better wide receiver duos in the NFL with Mike Evans. Every year he's been in the league. We're going on a decade now. He's had more than 1,000 receiving yards. The consistency there is unbelievable. And then Chris Godwin, the Penn State product, who a lot of you probably know of and are familiar with, a really good wide receiver too. And let's not take this Buccaneers team lightly. Like, they beat a quality Washington team week 1. That game wasn't close. And then week 2, they went on the road and they thumped Detroit. And defensively, they played awesome. The Bucs' weaknesses, they are susceptible to giving up chunks of yardage on the ground. And they're giving up 4.9 yards per carry. And going into that wild card game last year, what did I say for Philadelphia? The pass game ain't working. This passing offense is vanilla. It's predictable. Teams were calling out what they were doing. And last year, the Bucs couldn't stop the run. So I kept saying in the preview and in the lead up to that game, run the ball, run the ball, run the ball. What did Brian Johnson and Nick Sirianni do? They passed the ball too much. Missed opportunity. This year, though, especially with the injuries at wideout, I expect Philadelphia to run it a lot to see if the Bucs can stop them. Because Tampa Bay, in addition to the yards per carry, giving up 137.7 rushing yards per game. They also have a weakness at right tackle. Luke Goedeke coming out of concussion protocol. He is expected to play, but if he can't, Justin School is their backup right tackle. He's not any good, so keep an eye on that. And this is also a bad tackling team. So picking up yards after the catch, breaking tackles in the ground game, going to be a point of emphasis this week in the preparations for Philadelphia. If you want to bet on this game, no other sportsbook to do it with than our friends at BetUS. Head to chatsports.com/EaglesBet, and you get a 125% deposit bonus if you use the promo code EAGLES125. That means if you put down $100, you get $125 back. That's $225 to game with. Philadelphia in this game, -1. It's pretty much a pick 'em. So if you like the Eagles to win this game, or you like that over-under at 44 even, you can bet on this game, and make sure you do it with our friends at BetUS. They've got your game. Chatsports.com/EaglesBet, promo code EAGLES125. Let's next go to my keys to the game for Philadelphia. This is how the Philadelphia Eagles can beat the Tampa Bay Buccaneers to move their record to 3-1 going into the bye week. Key to the game number 1, Jalen Hurts has to be able to handle the Todd Bowles blitz packages. Jalen Hurts throughout his career is 1-3 against Todd Bowles and the Bucs. Bowles has blitzed Hurts on 81 of his 138 dropbacks in those 4 games, and Hurts has not fared well against those Bowles blitz pressures. He is 52 of 85 for 4 touchdowns and 4 picks, in addition to 4 sacks against pressure when facing Todd Bowles and Tampa Bay. Now, Jalen Hurts has made dramatic improvements in how he performs against the blitz year over year, from last year when it was a huge weakness to this year when it's actually become a strength of Jalen Hurts' game. And I think there are a couple of reasons for that. In years prior, it was Jason Kelce who was really making all of the calls and the checks at the line of scrimmage. Not necessarily a bad thing, but I think that quarterbacks like to be in control. And for Hurts not be able to do that, I think that hurt him a little bit. But with this offense, the pre-snap motion, Jalen Hurts is able to identify if the defense is playing man or zone. And he's already talked about how that has benefited him and this Eagles offense this year. But this year, there are safety valves. There are checks. There are hots. There are blitz beaters. Whereas last year, the Eagles were ill-prepared against the blitz. And that's why Jalen Hurts really struggled mightily last year against the blitz as compared to this year against the blitz. And we've been showing you those numbers here on your screen. In 4 games against Tampa Bay, Hurts has completed only 59% of his passes, well below his career average, and he's been sacked 8 times with 5 picks and 4 touchdown passes. So in general, he has struggled against Tampa Bay, and against the blitz, he's had no answers, and this Eagles offense has had no answers. Key to the game number 2, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers struggle in stopping the run. One of the strengths of this Eagles team, running the football. They have a top 5 offensive line, and as the game progresses and wears on, the Eagles offensive line gets stronger, and they wear down their opponent. The Buccaneers are giving up nearly 5 yards per carry and nearly 140 rushing yards per game. So Kellen Moore, you might be without A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith. You're already without Britton Covey. Run it with Saquon Barkley. Get Kenneth Gainwell involved. He's a good backup running back. Maybe we sprinkle in Will Shipley from time to time, and you get creative with him in the backfield, him out of the slot. Saquon to start this year has been balling. An MVP candidate. He leads the NFL in rushing yards. He's off to a historic start when you look at how his first 3 games compare to all running backs in the history of this organization. 24 carries for a $109 against Green Bay. 22 carries, 95 yards against the Falcons. 17 carries, a $147, 8.5 yards per tote against the New Orleans Saints. This Eagles offensive line is a strength. This Buccaneers run defense is a weakness. Philadelphia has to exploit that weakness. Key to the game number 3. Jalen Hurts and the Eagles have to stop turning the football over. It makes all of us want to pull our hair out. It has become maddening. It makes games very stressful. We see the potential that Philadelphia has as an offense, but they shoot themselves in the foot time and time again with dumb penalties, but with turning the rock over, giving the opposition momentum, giving the opposition opportunities, and it starts and ends with Jalen Hurts because there is a turnover problem here. And you look year by year with how much Hurts has turned the ball over, especially of late, it's not good. In 2020, when he took over for Carson Wentz, 4 starts, including when he came in for that Green Bay game, 6 turnovers in 4 games. In 2021, 13 turnovers in 16 games. 2022, the best year of his career, when he was an MVP runner-up and probably would have won it if he didn't hurt his shoulder in Chicago late in the year. Only 9 turnovers in 18 games. So he can get back to that. I'm a believer. But in 2023, 20 turnovers in 18 games. And here in 2024, 5 already in 3 games. In totality, that is 53 turnovers in 59 games. And it goes without saying, but that is not a sustainable way to play football. And when you're the quarterback, one of your key jobs is to keep the ball out of harm's way. Hurts hasn't done that. Now, some of the picks aren't on him. Some of the fumbles aren't on him. But he's also played reckless football, and he has to clean it up. Because if the Eagles do, they are a locomotive going down the train tracks with momentum. And there aren't a lot of teams who are equipped defensively to stop this Eagles team with this much firepower because there's a plethora of it. Key to the game number 4. The Eagles, once again, have to get Dallas Goedert involved. A lot of people forgot that Dallas Goedert is one of the top all-around tight ends in the NFL. And this is a shout-out to Jalen Hurts for looking his way. He was kind of forced into doing that without A.J. Brown, without Britton Covey, without Devontae Smith for some of that game after that dirty hit and concussion that he suffered. It's on Kellen Moore for calling pass plays for Dallas Goedert. The game-winning 60-plus yarder was a great rub route and design where Jahan Dotson made a couple of Saints players run into one another, and then Jalen Hurts knew where the pressure was coming from, over the middle, dumped it off, and then Dallas Goedert was chugging downfield. I loved what Jordan Mailata had to say when he was mic'd up too. Lose the Trailomite! Lose the Trailomite! It was just fantastic. But to see Dallas Goedert have that game, I think it showed the Eagles the weapon that he is, and it gave Dallas Goedert some confidence because he's really been up and down of late. from last year carrying over into the first 2 games this year, a career-high 10 catches for 170 yards. He's a weapon, so Philadelphia has to use him. And then key to the game number 5, this Eagles defense has to bring it again. Jalen Carter, I want to see you continue to be a dominant player. He had an Aaron Donald-like performance. And if he can play like that week in and week out, he can change the tune, change the tide, change the complexion of this Eagles defense. He can be one of the most dominant players in the NFL. Jordan Davis, you are 6'6", 340. You finally used that size to your advantage against New Orleans. Brandon Graham, he's been playing great all year, but he especially brought it against the Saints. Josh Sweat, able to get after the quarterback. Bryce Huff, he set the edge on a running play. Nolan Smith did the same. Zach Ball and Nakobe Dean playing well. Quinyon Mitchell looking like an all-rookie defensive first-team member. Darius Slay was really good as well in locking down Rashid Shaheed. Reed Blankenship with the game-icing interception, and C.J. Gardner-Johnson with that swagger. This Eagles defense made monumental strides from the first 2 weeks to week 3. Show me that this is the defense that you can become, and I want to see you shut down this Tampa Bay Buccaneers offense. If the Eagles are able to win this game, imagine the vibes for us, for the team, being at 3-1, going into the bye week with Cleveland on the other side, and I don't think Cleveland's all that good, and they have to come to Philadelphia. And I think if the Eagles are able to massage that game out against the Browns and Deshaun Watson, that can really set themselves up to have success for the rest of the year. Predict the score. Eagles, Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Who you got? Let me know down in the comment section. Here's my prediction. The Eagles are 1-point favorites. I actually think they win by 1. I don't think it's a high-scoring affair. Give me the Birds 24-23.